welcome to Ideas for Change. We've got a very interesting debate lined up for you. Abhishek Manu Singhvi versus Ravi Shankar Prasad. And it's not about the latest political twist. We are talking serious economics, talking about dealing with the fiscal deficit, dealing with rural demand and growth, and also fixing the economy at a time when we are talking of a slowdown. How are the two political parties different, if at all they are? Let's first raise the big questions on Ideas for Change. Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, what is the agenda at the BJP to fix the economy?
Well, as far as the BJP is concerned, our record of governance since the year 1998 to 2004 is too well known. We ensured growth with equity, we ensured stability of prices, we generated employment and created a situation whereby manufacturing, entrepreneurship, all could grow. We will certainly create those environment. When today manufacturing is down, infrastructure is in a very critical state, all this would be taken good care of. If I can give you one very specific example, the National Highway Program was initiated by the NDA government of Shri Vajpayee. Now against the 81% growth rate during the NDA regime, it came to nearly 40%. Even the CAG, even the PM score group had to comment very critically about the lackluster performance. These are core areas of the country. The second is the energy sector. You know, 2003 Act making revolutionary changes in the energy sector was also introduced by us, and the law was passed when we were in power in 2003. Today, energy reform is also very, very lackluster.
Mr. Abhishek Singhvi, as the BJP likes to believe, during their times there was no recession, no pricing pressure. How do you argue out the way the Congress or any Congress-led government will be able to put the economy back on track?
The Congress has already produced a record rate of growth, 8.8% in 4.5 years, and with the meltdown, close to 7%, at least 6.5%. That itself gives us a great momentum and a great start. Remember, without the meltdown, the previous government had 5.8%. We have provided 3 huge stimuli. Election itself is really a 4th stimulus. These are going to have a cascading down the line effect. Obviously, you see some of the results of that effect after a small time lag. As you add these two, the rate of growth and the stimuli given, when we come back to power after 16th of May, we will continue to build on these. In particular, and this is the only distressing part, despite the government's several strong measures, the banks need to actually lower the interest rate much more.
Let's get down to basics that have been worrying not just corporate India, certainly a whole lot of investors, foreign, domestic, everyone. Ravi Shankar Prasad, what is the remedy for this fiscal deficit unofficially pegged at double digits?
Obviously, first of all, we are going to take the nation into conference as to what the exact critical state of economy is. The present government kept on telling the whole world that the fundamentals of economy is strong, and ultimately what happened, you all know it very well. Therefore, wherever pruning is needed, we shall do, but ultimately you have to have a proper balance. Fiscal deficits at some point is desirable, but the way you keep on fudging the account is also not good at all, which this government has done. You don't make provision and you claim that we shall write off all the loans. Therefore, one has to be transparent about it. One has to take the nation into conference, and wherever the money is needed, you have to pump in that.
Ravi Shankar Prasad, if I can actually try and dig a little deeper and ask you to give me some real instances about how would you measure the situation on the ground?
Well, there will be going to be a whole range of measures. First of all, we will have to see after coming to power as to what is the exact state of economy is.
Let's get down to coalition basics, skepticism of markets, India Inc., investors, everyone. Abhishek Singhvi, coalition is the way life will look forward. However, how will be your signals from a coalition point of view any different from any other coalition?
Let me make it clear that political parties in Indian democracy have better things to do in the middle of election than to start convincing investors in the stock market that a coalition is here to stay. Whether they like it or not, that's a fact of life. I remember in 2004, the moment a non-India shining government took over, all the media and all the BJP walas had hyped up India shining so much that the stock market crashed. The stock market had nightmares thinking this is a left supported government. Well, we did nothing, we just showed good governance, and within a few weeks everything was okay. So stock market is ultimately like water. Money must find its way to the appropriate level, and if they find solid good governance, which is what we've given in the last 5 years, everything will be hunky-dory.
Ravi Shankar Prasad, you want to react to it? Skepticism of the markets, dealing with coalition politics and the various kinds of criticism that comes with it.
Yes, I cannot wish away this is the age of coalition. But if the political leadership is a leadership of substance, then you can take a whole range of measures, including taking your allies on board, whereby if this is the right way for the sake of economic health of the country, this would be taken.
A whole lot of the action will depend on the kind of coalitions you plan, Ravi Shankar Prasad. What are you open to, and who is a complete no-no?
First of all, left is ruled out positively. We don't wish to take the leftover of Indian politics on board with us. As far as this nature of coalition is concerned, let me tell you, in the last 25 days, the entire political horizon in the country has changed drastically. And don't be surprised if the election results are truly surprising. I have already travelled 11 states in the country. This morning I came from Madhya Pradesh. Tomorrow I am leaving for Uttar Pradesh. And I can tell you, the results are going to be really astounding.
Abhishek Singhvi, will you want to be open to the left where the situation arises?
They've already had a UPA Congress government with the left supporting 4.5 out of 5 years. So where is the question of ruling out the left? And where is the question that if there is a left support, the stock market must crash? I am not saying that we want it, but certainly I am not ruling it out or ruling it in. Why should I? Just to please India Inc., I would be a foolish political formation if I was to say at this stage, without knowing the numbers, that I shall have nothing to do with the left if the left outside support or any other kind of support was needed.
What about being open to Mayawati?
No, I am not going to indulge in absolutely fruitless speculation. It's absolutely speculative to say whether Mayawati will be part of us, whether BJD, Naveen Patnaik will be part of us. These are pure speculations. I mean, all I'm going to say is that everything is open in a state of flux in politics, subject to some basic fault lines, some basic watershed rules of Indian politics, and that is that we shall not touch with a barge pole any communal force or anybody associated intrinsically with a communal force. But beyond that, I think anything else would be pure speculation.
We are going to take a short break, but when we come back, we continue this debate and it gets more and more micro. We touch upon issues of divestment, issues about dealing with pension and insurance reform, the banning in the retail sector. Will anything change with the election of a new government, depending on which one it is? Welcome back. So far we've been discussing the macroeconomy and the political permutation combinations with Abhishek Manu Singhvi and Ravi Shankar Prasad. Now we get down to the basics, micro issues of the economy. Okay, let's get back into economics and history as to what has really happened during the two sets of governments, NDA versus UPA. Ravi Shankar Prasad, are you going to be open to divestment, as open as you have been before during NDA's regime?
Obviously, if there are many Sikh companies, this whole UPA government stopped even the disinvestment of Sikh companies, which was a part of their CMP. Now, whether profit-making companies are to be disinvested or not, that is the question we have to consider. But the whole range of other Sikh unit, we have to take a call on that. After all, they are productive assets of the country today lying unused. How to make best use of that without disturbing the rights of workers is equally important. There the question of a proper blend of reform with equity comes about, and we shall ensure that that happens. Don't forget one thing, many of the concerns which were disinvested, for instance modern bread, for instance Paradip phosphates, where it was difficult to give salary to workers, today are thriving concerns. So this is how you package it, how you communicate, so that the concerns of equity, the rights of the workers and the employees and the need for reform are properly blended.
Abhishek Singhvi, the whole story changed for the UPA, even though your CMP clearly said you would look at divesting SIC units. That didn't seem to happen, or at least not as much as that India Inc. or the Lal Street was expecting, or any investor was expecting. Is your idea towards divestment of SIC units going to change ahead, or will you stick by it?
I think you should be clear about the very distinct difference between our meaning and definition of disinvestment and the way that word is used for the BJP NDA regime. For us, a very, very calibrated, controlled selling of some shares, in certain listed enterprises, very carefully chosen, is all that we promised. And we did start the process. We did do it for some industries, but we couldn't do it as much as we wanted because of some opposition from the left. For them, the word disinvestment has a blanket meaning: selling off the family silver or gold, selling off enterprises which are good, doing what they did in Centaur, and certainly that's not going to be our approach. Then it wasn't, it won't be now.
Ravi Shankar Prasad, let's talk about FDI and retail. You say you're going to ban it if you were to come to power.
Today the retail sector has a large range of small players for the ages, for generations. We have equally to respond to their concerns. And India is a growing market, and I am quite sure the world is going to come to India on the terms we fix. And during our India regime, we have the largest foreign investment in so many sectors. I was a minister myself, dealing with many key commercial ministries. Therefore, this is an area on which we have taken a conscious decision not to permit, because it is the larger interest of a small player who are in abundance in the entire country.
Abhishek Singhvi, how will the retail sector benefit any further if they would actually vote in for you? Because you and BJP in some ways or the other, broad contours, have similar reservations. One says we'll think about it in the future, the other says we want to ban it. But at the end of the day, neither of you have done anything.
Well, I think we have to deal with that issue after 16th of May. We are committed to having a gradual, calibrated loosening of that sector. Since we already have one kind of retail, not multi-product kind, I think it's a natural progression to move towards that, but subject to controls. You know, our whole approach and philosophy is very, very different, because we want to ensure that this brings in genuine prosperity and support to the Indian masses, does not create destitution as it goes along. So there's no blanket approach, but yes, in principle we are not opposed to it. How slowly regulated we will do it, you have to wait and see.
Ravi Shankar Prasad, pension and insurance reform, how are you going to actually bridge that whole issue? Will you bring it in?
Well, yes, this is the area of reform, but the way in which many international bodies, investment firms, bankers have behaved, misbehaved if I can use that expression, is equally a matter of serious concern. Whether we should allow uninterrupted play of international players in pension management has to be given a relook in the wake of what happened on the Wall Street. Whether they are seeking bailout package from President Obama, we see that. Therefore, those concerns, hard reality of the so-called Caesars of capitalism is equally to be taken into account as to how they have conducted and they have dislocated the entire international economy.
Abhishek Singhvi, will extra money come in from these sectors? Will we have serious caps considered for pension and insurance to be lifted off to bring in more foreign money?
We are committed to it. We almost did it. Let me remind you, we proposed it, we almost did it. The left's vehement opposition and the fact that parliament sessions went out of time. That's the only reason it didn't happen. I don't see any great delay even for it to happen very, very soon in the near future.
You're almost sounding like the left parties. How are you going to get the FIIs convinced? You can't deny that whether it's the BJP or the Congress, you have to appease to players who will bring in the money to support the economy.
First of all, it all depends upon the kind of DNA you project. When our government came about, we completely unshackled the Indian economy from the scourge of license, permit, quota Raj, and the rest is history. You must have heard about the Mumbai Club. They wanted protection. we said go and swim in the sea. And today Indian companies are acquiring properties abroad. That's equally well known. Therefore, when the BJP comes to power, a kind of positive indication would go to those who are manufacturers, investors, that the BJP will come with policy which will attract investment. And let me tell you, once we come about, we'll take a whole range of issues. We have already come with our vision document for infrastructure sector. We have already come with our vision document for IT sector. We'll come with the health sector, and the whole range of other issues we shall be dealing with. And I wish to assure those who are watching this program that we shall ensure a proper place for India as a sound investment destination, with only one caveat: equity will equally be an important consideration in our growth rate.
Okay, back to issues that both of you are familiar with. Let me get on to you with this one, Abhishek Singhvi, which is the nuclear deal. What is the next stage in making nuclear deal an economically viable concept?
An important historic initiative was taken by this government, intergenerational future impact. It is but natural that that story has to be carried forward consequentially. The single most important item on the agenda is a amendment to the Atomic Energy Act to permit public-private participation. Obviously, the amounts needed to promote nuclear energy are humongous. It can't be given only by the government, because the government has to use that money for the social sector like health, sewage and sanitation.
BJP has done much talk around this nuclear deal, but we've also known your reservations about it. Your reservations from the way we have a policy towards testing. That and other issues about monetizing the nuclear deal. Ravi Shankar Prasad, what's your view?
I'm indeed surprised you are asking me this question when the original propagator of the deal itself is not making it an election issue at all. Manmohan Singh, Sonia Gandhi and the whole range of other Congress leaders are not at all talking about the deal as something of great achievement which they claim to their credit. Our view is very clear. When we go for nuclear deal, India's strategic interest and nuclear sovereignty ought not to be compromised. The right to test is an integral part of that. And the kind of hostile environment we live in, namely Taliban at our doorsteps, uncertain Bangladesh, you cannot wish away security concerns. Therefore, we don't see nuclear deal only by way of promoting India's economic interests abroad. We equally see it from the standpoint of our strategic security.
Let me come to something that's probably bothering anyone in terms of an investor, corporate India, as much as it is bothering any citizen, and that's certainly also true with foreign policy. How are we going to actually see a serious relook at the way we are securing our borders? Taliban is knocking at the doors 100 kilometers from the Indian border. Abhishek Singhvi, let's hear from you first.
In December 2008, in 2 debates, we have done more concrete logistic work, more concrete legislation on this subject than any other government. Mr. Advani from 2001 has been repeating and talking of a federal anti-terror agency. It's we who did it. The Unlawful Activities Act has been made very efficacious, a very much more stringent state than the earlier version, and yet much less draconian than POTA, because it balances a fair mix of human rights with issues of policing.
Ravi Shankar Prasad, how different will you be?
First of all, stop vote bank politics. Where tough measures is needed, do take. The most important thing is, Pakistan has to be told in unequivocal terms that this shall not be tolerated. And India should not do the batting for Pakistan in the containment of Taliban. Taliban is their creation. And we must put up on our guards, our borders, our readiness. And let me tell you, we know that elements of Taliban are getting a lot of support from elements in Pakistani establishment. That has to be broken. And I'm afraid that is also the responsibility of America. As far as we are concerned, let me tell you, our record in the fight against terror, in protecting our strategic security is well known, and we shall take all the adequate measures needed to secure India.
That's right. I always want to ask, what's the big difference between Congress and the BJP? So many times they always seem to have similar views. Sometimes they're vague, sometimes they're specific. But at the end of the day, I really do want to ask you, Ravi Shankar Prasad, when you make that point, How different can these two political parties get?
The difference is this: under the NDA regime, if they chose to attack the parliament, 5 were killed, rest were tried, convicted till the Supreme Court, and Afzal Guru not being given capital punishment for the last 2.5 years. During our regime, we were heavy on the terrorists and their patrons who were on the run. Today, terrorists and their patrons know that we can stop tough actions against them for vote bank politics.
Okay, we'll all wait for the final answers and we probably have them in numbers that you and I don't know yet, but you also know that those numbers may not be very pleasing, which means you'll have to do some serious math with coalition partners. Good luck with all of that. Thanks for joining us.